JBlog, September 7th of 2009. First thing we're looking at right now is natural gas, the natural gas continuous contract, which is actually the trade that I have on this week. And this is my medium term trade. The trade is long gas, short oil. I'm looking at the natural gas chart here, and I see a, um, a bottom having formed here in natural gas at 322, and that bottom was then violated here, and then it dropped pretty steep after that. Basically, I am seeing a capitulation here currently. Natural gas, it went as low as 250. um, I Many gas companies now have this point, $3 basically is where they shut in production. It's no longer profitable for them to actually produce natural gas, so they're shutting their production, which should take the oversupply offline, and they won't start it up again until natural gas is quite a bit higher. Now, this is not a long-term, it's not a short-term trade. This is not like an overnight or a week trade. This is more along the lines of February, March, thereabouts, maybe further. So in order to finance this deal, I'm actually going short oil. Oil, from my point of view, is having some real difficulties breaking through this 75 here, so this could very well start to be a top for oil, and this is very close to the bottom for gas, because realistically 252, 188 perhaps, those are the lows for the last 15 years. But what interests me the most is actually the oil gas relationship. If you're taking the cost of a barrel of oil and you divide that by gigajoule of gas, you get a ratio just like a gold-silver ratio, for example. And this ratio, which we're looking at here, is good for the last 15 years as far as stock charts as natural gas going back. And that ratio has always topped out somewhere around $13, maybe $14. Here it went as high as $16, and at the bottom it always topped out at around $4, $6. Currently this ratio is actually up at 26. Last week it was 27 when I established my trade, and that tells me that either oil is too expensive, gas is too cheap, or both at the same time. Either one could be true. So that's what attracted me to this particular trade, is that something is out of whack. One of these two things isn't seeing things right. So that's my current trade, my newest trade, the short oil, long gas. um, Looking at the other commodities now, gold of course has been taking in the limelight these last few days. Looking at gasoline, gasoline seems to have made a double top here. It's been dropping since. Let's see if it finds some support in the 160 range here, where it had support last. It definitely broke through the 180. It's just slightly. Copper, the one that supposedly flagged this recovery, the one that got everybody's attention, the metal with the PhD in economics, and it is also showing a little bit of weakness. Of course, not a lot of weakness yet. Now gold, of course, is on everybody's radar right now, is because it once again is trying for the 1000. The other interesting metal that goes along with that is of course silver, the poor man's gold as you call it, and silver has had the same run up as gold, but from a much lower price. Completely ignored, like silver is always ignored. I always do like silver, because on top of being a monetary metal, it is also an industrial metal, so it actually has multiple uses. I do like that. Outside of that, the market hasn't been doing a hell of a lot this last week, or actually in the last little while. It definitely seems to be showing some, continuing to show this top. I continue to point out this technical non-confirmation between the market making higher highs and yet the RSI not making higher highs in both the longer term as well as the shorter term RSI. Volume is not really telling us much. What's more interesting is the MACD is showing us another technical non-confirmation on this. The stochastics are showing us a technical non-confirmation on this. Money flow is definitely decreasing. OBV is still being pretty steady, but it has dropped below here, so we'll have to see what happens next week on that. The tricks, which is kind of a more long-term MACD, it reacts more slowly. Again, it is in a technical non-confirmation. Once again, my long, um, the thing that I expected to happen for quite a long time, which is that we could have a pullback and it could be a quite a severe pullback at this point, might just happen one of these days. Liquidity out there is still crazy and the bulls are still charging. Apple, I have short a small position, did not work out for the time being. But again, we have the same non-confirmations in technical non-confirmations in Apple as we do in the general stock exchange. Agrium, I'm still holding. I love writing options against this one, just because I like to sell options up here and I like to buy them back down here. And that has actually turned out to be quite a profitable, conservative long-term trade. Now my financial triple bull, I'm still holding. It's unclear what it's doing, but it's cheap, so I don't mind holding that as a hedge. Goldman Sachs, I do still hold short, and it is showing lower highs here, so let's see if that continues on going like that. Again, the technical, even though the prices are not breaking down that dramatically, um, the technicals are the technical indicators are showing more weakness than the price. And the US dollar, let's scroll down to the US dollar. This is a Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar is showing some weakness. This would be related to oil. As soon as oil drops, if oil drops, then the Canadian dollar will drop as well. It's very much linked to uh, the price of oil. And if we're looking at the US dollar, it could potentially have put in a bottom here as well. It's showing a bit of a rise. If and when this picks up and goes up, if it does, but if it does pick up, then a lot of liquidity will be absorbed by the US dollar, and therefore money will drain out of the bond market as well as the stock market as well as the commodity market. It's kind of what I'm waiting for as well. As of yet, we're basically in a holding pattern, and we'll have to wait what happens in September and October, being two bad months statistically. If there is no pullback by November, then I guess I'm gonna have to call it quits and say, well, I was wrong, no pullback. But for the time being, I just continue being hedged quite comfortably, and taking these long, short, opposing trades. So that's my blog for today. Hope you have a good week, good shortened week. All the best, make lots of money. Bye.